Hey, I'm Kayla from YouCanMakeThisToo. My wife makes stuff as well. Her two main hobbies are sewing things and collecting fabric. As you can see, to help facilitate that, we got some shelf and really awesome fabric storage up there. However, I made her some furniture before and she's kind of outgrown it, and also my skills have developed a lot, so we're going to make her some more furniture to help her organize her space as her hobby has expanded as well. Got a bunch of plywood in the truck so we can start getting these things built. So let's get that unloaded and then I'll show you the plan. All right, so I got everything modeled up in Fusion 360. My buddy Brandon did a really great class on how to learn Fusion that I'll link below. And this is what we have. This is gonna go against the wall underneath the fabric storage that you saw. And it's just basically a few cabinets with a bar on top and a big opening that she can set her sewing machine and serger on. And then of course, inside the doors, we're gonna have some shelving. So it's basically 3 cabinet boxes and a bar, pretty simple. The other thing, we're gonna give her a much larger cutting surface. We're gonna build a 4x5 table that goes in the middle with 2 drawers on each side, on top, and then doors, bunch of shelving inside. And on one end, I don't have it modeled, we're gonna do a little cubby hanging box thing that she can stick all of her plans in. And yeah, this is the plan. So in this video, I'm gonna be making the cabinets and the bar for her sewing machine. Next week, I'll have a video out on the table if you're interested in that. Anyway, I've got my cut list made up, time to go start breaking down some plywood. So I've got my stack of plywood to start breaking down. I elevated the first piece with a few 2x4s so that way I could just rip in place without having to set up a different set of sawhorses. And I'm going to break everything down a little oversized with my track saw into manageable pieces, but a bit oversized so I can go to the table saw and rip everything to consistent size. And I'm making sure to do all of my rough breakdown first, so once I set my table saw to a dimension, I can rip all pieces of that dimension at one time so everything stays consistent. Tip on cutting plywood: be mindful of the way your blade spins. The veneer on plywood tends to be really thin and tear out, fuzz out really easy, and you can get chipped edges. So always be mindful of what, if you have a finished side, which side is the finished side and whether that needs to be up or down. On a table saw, the blade spins towards you, cutting down, so you want the finished side to be on top, so those teeth are turning into the finish and is gonna get the cleanest cut. Any fuzz you get is gonna be on the bottom. If you're using a circular saw or a track saw, it's just the opposite because the blade is spinning this way, so the finished side should be on the bottom because you're gonna get your fuzz out on the top. Another great way to minimize that fuzz out though, if you have 2 good sides, is just lay tape down and that tape will support the fibers and help minimize your tear out. All my sheets are broken down, so next thing to do is start doing any cutouts I have, like for the toe kicks, and also I have a really tall baseboard, so I'm gonna cut out the back for the baseboard because I don't wanna cut my baseboard and remove it for this unit that's gonna be against the wall. I also had to make sure that my bottom piece was actually a little bit less deep than my shelving because my baseboard's tall enough that the bottom of the cabinet hits where the baseboard hits. Once it's all together, you'll understand what I mean. But if you make something like this and you have tall baseboards, or just depending on the bottom height of your cabinet, something to consider if you don't want to cut out your baseboard. And to speed up the process of toe kicks, since I couldn't find my jigsaw, I'm just going to use my baby bandsaw, and I got a mark where the cut starts and then another mark on my fence at 3 inches, and I've got this set at 3 inches. I'm going to do a 3x3 toe kick. So I'll just push my wood until it hits that mark, and then I'll know I'm deep enough, turn it around, go in sideways until I hit the mark and it piece falls out. We're good. I normally only use baby bandsaw for cutting curves, and that blade was deflecting too much for these straight cuts, so I made the same marks on the big bandsaw, run them on this real quick. And once I get all those cut out, pocket hole time. Now that I've got the pocket holes done, everything's pretty much ready for assembly, except for the doors. I'll make them after everything's assembled, though those will be a little more involved. This is the fast part. I want to get it knocked out, but I want to pre-finish it this time because I'm doing something different. Normally I finish my projects like all the same, but I want to do a natural finish on the inside and then white on the outside. That'll be easier if I pre-finish everything. I'm going to be using Total Boat Halcyon for the inside, which is a clear amber finish. It'll warm things up. And then I'll be using the Elixir white paint on the outside. Both of these products are water-based, so to get the best finish, I'm going to pop the grain and wet it with some 50-50, half water, half alcohol. Alcohol helps it dry faster. And then give everything a light sanding, because otherwise the water in the finish is going to raise the grain and then it won't have a smooth finish. If you do that, sand and pop the grain first, finish comes out better if you're using water-based. Got everything laid out, and I've had that sneaking feeling this is going too fast and too easy. And then I realized what I'd been forgetting, which normally I don't realize until it's too late. And that's edge banding everything. I don't want these ugly plywood edges showing, so everything's gonna be edge banded. I'm just gonna use some iron on edge banding, super easy. So I just cut this to approximate length, iron it on, then trim it. I'm gonna try to use one of these little quick edge speed trimmers. It's supposed to trim both at the same time. I've never had luck with this stupid thing though, and always use a chisel because the edge banding is real wood, and so it has grain that doesn't perfectly parallel. So on one edge it cuts straight, but where the grain doesn't match with the direction I'm cutting, it always like tears out onto the wood. But I'm gonna give it a try again. Hopefully it works. And once everything is edge banded and trimmed, then we can go ahead and spray the Halcyon on one side, flip it, and spray everything else white that needs to be painted white. Finished spraying everything, and I thought this through when I laid everything out and picked my pieces to make sure I had the clearest sides for the natural finish and was going to paint the ugly sides. But somehow I managed to make like 4 right sides and 2 left sides instead of 3 and 3. So like I have 2 pairs and then a non-matching pair. Fortunately, 2 of these 2 cabinets are in a butt up against each other, so yeah, I can just sand the paint off one side and clear it. But yeah, I'm gonna do that off camera, then we'll get to assembling these. So when I was cleaning up, of course, I realized I did the sides wrong and had to sand down and natural finish one side. I left this side natural because 2 of these are going to butt together. So I'm just make sure this side goes where they butt together and it won't be visible. No big deal. But then the next day I came out to assemble, and when I assembled, I realized I also didn't paint the edges of all the bottom pieces. I messed that up. And even though it was like the same mistake in the same series of events that didn't properly lay out everything and need to be painted, it felt like 2. And some days it's like, no big deal. Easy enough to fix. Everyone makes mistakes, and other days it's like, you should sell all those tools you clearly don't know how to use and take the money and then go buy your wife what she needs. Anyone else? Just me? Yeah. I've got a simple method for putting the shelves in these. I just like to use spacers. These are cut wide enough that my shelf will register positively, so I don't have to worry about it being tipped or twisted. Set them in. Now I gotta make sure that these are flush with the back because I made these a little bit shorter than the depth of the cabinet, just because I thought that would look better. And yeah, now I can shoot the pocket hole screws in. To dress up everything, help hold it square, I've got some Luan 5mm 1/4 inch plywood, and I finished one side and gonna line it up with one edge and the top. That'll make sure I orient it the right way. And yeah, that'll be nice. Of course, because this is covering the baseboard, it's not gonna, you know, go all the way. It's kind of weird because I have really tall baseboards in my house, but is what it is. Probably won't ever see back there anyway because it's super low. And as always, remembering that nails, if they blow out, or if they twist, they'll twist left or right. So I'm making sure that I'm perpendicular to the wood, so that way if it dives, it just dives into the piece and not out, causing a blowout. So on the order of operations for assembling these, I did the bottom and the top pieces first in order to hold everything to the rough rectangle, because I found that to be easier than trying to move vertically, and the shelves, everything gets kind of wonky and wobbly. And then the backs after the shelves, because I was able to reach in from both sides, that also makes it easier. So yeah, that's why I put it together. Now that we have these done, the top is going to be a solid piece of poplar, but I need to start working on the doors, and I'm going to use a lot of solid wood for that instead of plywood. So I need to go get that, mill it up. I'm going to go ahead and mill up enough for the table that's going to go in the middle as well. So yeah, let's go grab some poplar and get it milled up. I have all the stiles and rails milled up for the doors. Now I need to cut the groove for the panel to go in the doors. So one of the things that's going to help is knowing where my saw blade starts and stops. So here's where my cut begins and ends. Of course, I'm realizing with my riving knife, I can't drop onto this blade. I have to start the cut. And my plan was initially to start the cut, come, and then lift off. However, I don't want to remove the riving knife. That's a nice safety feature. So I'm just going to run through, but then when I get to the end, I'll lift off. And the reason for that is I don't want to have a gap at the top of the stile that'll be visible when you open the door, but on the bottom won't be a big deal. All right, so I've got all my dominoes cut, which are what's going to hold these together. I'm just going to do a little test fit to get my dimensions for the panel that needs to go on the inside. Boom, so I've got one frame roughly together. Now I know I cut this groove 3/8 of an inch deep, double that, that's 3/4 of an inch extra width and vertical. But the whole idea of a floating panel is that as this frame moves, I want room for that panel to float, because being Luan, it's not gonna move. So instead of going 3/4 of an inch, I'll just go 5/8 of an inch oversize. So I'll measure across, measure top to bottom, add 5/8 of an inch. That's my panel size. these are pretty much ready to assemble. I've got the panels cut out and rough sanded. I want to really sand these once they're assembled to make sure everything flushes up nicely, but the insides are going to be really tough, especially because they're going to be panel. So I had the idea to clamp these and gang sand them all at once. So we'll do that, then start doing all the assembly. I realized I've done a bunch of time lapse, so I think I'll do like just a solid 10-minute real-time sanding cut for this for you. Actually, I'm not. We're just going to go to another time lapse and get all this together. One of the things I wasn't thinking of when I ran all those grooves for the panels and the long pieces, and I didn't want to take out my riving knife, because that groove wasn't centered, I made a whole bunch of lefts or rights, whichever. So it was inevitable that now all my doors have one side with a hole on the top and bottom. So I'm going to go ahead and plug those. I'm going to use some fixed wood by Total Boat. It's a 2-part epoxy product, so I'll just mix that together, shove it in there like wood filler. And then a lot of them you probably noticed was a little wormy and had some grooves. I'll use this to plug those as well. And then when I'm ready to sand, you know, be ready for paint, because this will be dry. I sorted all the doors to figure out if there's a best end to be the top, because it's going to be more visible than the bottom, and also if one edge was better or worse. If there was a worse edge, I made sure to put that where another door is going to meet, so it'd be hidden versus on the outside. Now I'm going to use handy Craig jig to do all the hinges, because these are kind of tricky. If you're cutting all these out on a CNC, you could have it do that, but otherwise something like this, or you can make a jig. One of the things I really like about this jig is it actually has 2 small holes that actually match for these little wing screws that go in. And I like to shoot those first before the whole thing fills up with chips. The only aggravating bit is you can't really get 2 drills in, so you got to keep taking this one off in order to do those little wings. The other handy thing is this has a bunch of measurements, so it's really easy to get these set the same distance in. If I was going to make a jig, I'd probably build it with a fence or something built on it, so it's just the same. But this makes this more multi-use, less of a, you know, dedicated jig for a job. You can use it on anything.